Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast presented by Under Armour. My name is Joe Kuzma, and as always, almost always, seconded by my colleague, my cohort, my partner in crime, my sidekick, my bombardier, one bad mofo, Brian E. Roach. Sup, Brian?
Sup, man?
Yeah, I'm feeling a little saucy today. I know we're getting this out a little bit later. I had to take a breather, almost a 24-hour time out, and collect my thoughts based on the championship games that were played yesterday. And, oh, man, there are two games, obviously, to talk about. Yeah. Before we get to those, I think I want to address something really quick, because I'm not going to get into it is January 22nd at this point in time, and I don't think I really want to get into talking about Le'Veon Bell contract crap until we get a little closer to like March and deadlines for the tag, and then again, we'll have another 2-3 months to discuss and debate all of that, and we could just put a nice little bow around it, put it on the side, and wait to unwrap it later, because really all we're doing is re-gifting all of the stuff we said from last year.
Absolutely.
But let me say one thing. I didn't necessarily agree with ESPN's Jeremy Fowler for drudging this stuff up days before a playoff game. I also don't like the media reports of we don't know the whole story, but Le'Veon Bell supposedly being late for the walkthrough or missing all but 5 minutes, according to some source or sources. And then saying he was late coming in on Sunday, too. And I was thinking to myself, I wanted to get down to that Total Sports Enterprises signing that was Saturday, and I couldn't make it. And I was thinking to myself, why was it that I didn't get down there? Oh, yeah, there was this giant snowstorm that came over Friday night with all of the freezing rain and people. There was all kinds of things canceled everywhere, from school to people's yoga classes and senior activities and you name it. And that was the same thing for Saturday and even parts of Sunday. And even driving down the Heinz Field was a little challenging, and it was cold. So you think that the weather had anything to do with anyone being late? Because, by the way, Bell isn't the only one that's being reported as being late or tardy or absent or whatever be the case. Inside linebackers coach Jerry Osowski also, that came out like days later, and you barely heard a peep about it because I don't think Osowski's on the hot seat, so to speak. But, geez, folks, there are, I'm sure there's more players that were running late and whatnot. You know what I mean? These are young guys. They like to sleep in, get their naps in. I'm still kind of side with them.
Well, here, let me put it this way. There's a huge difference between 5 minutes late and 5 minutes of attendance. And there's a much bigger difference between I was a little late as opposed to I only showed up for the last 5 minutes. Now, while I certainly believe that anybody can get stuck in a snowstorm of any kind, traffic jams occur without anybody knowing it, and as you and I have said, there are always two sides to every story. In fact, there are three sides. There's his side, the other person's side, and then there's the truth, because nobody ever tells the truth. But that's beside the point. It's more than likely that there are some reasons for this lateness. Now, I will say, if Bell actually only showed up for 5 minutes of that last walkthrough, I would say that barring something catastrophic occurring, that's a problem. But I don't know that that's the case, because it's being reported multiple ways. So until we have more information, we've always taken the tact of, I don't want to jump to conclusions.
We may not ever get the full story on this because who's really going to talk about it? Bell? I mean, is Mike Tomlin going to say anything, or the Rooneys, or the Steelers organization, or none of these guys are going to? They're going to say, "Who cares?" They're rolling their eyes at this, even as we speak, even though they're not listening to us. But the other thing I thought kind of comical in picturing this whole thing was, well, what if his car got stuck? Because you know what? I'm picturing, Le'Veon Bell, he's rapping and all that, the rapper lifestyle, the pro football, star lifestyle. Dude's probably driving like something that's like a sports car. He's not driving like an all-wheel drive, like family SUV or minivan or something that's good for the Pennsylvania weather with all the hills and mountains and snow and ice and everything like that. So, I just laugh. I mean, who knows? Who cares? That's kind of where I'm at with it. But it's just food for thought. Don't go for the bait, folks. They're dropping the bait in the ocean. They want you to bite. The clickbait and everything else that's out there. Just give it some thought. So there were 2 games to talk about, Brian. Well, there's really only 1 game to talk about.
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, I said it was January 22nd. It's almost a year, or not a year. I'm sorry, a month removed from Festivus. And I still think we have some airing of grievances, and I don't know that you've ever pinned me, so maybe Festivus isn't over and we can still air some grievances. But first, let's talk about the game that nobody cared about. The Minnesota Vikings, who didn't get off the team plane, against the Philadelphia Eagles in a matchup with a score that I thought would have been flipped. So once again, looking like the idiot I do. I had this conversation, we all saw it in our little internal chat and everything here at SCU, and we were talking amongst ourselves, and I got it thrown in my face by Zach Meckler, and Eric Herman was just trolling all night long with his various things. But Nick Foles, and I was saying Nick Foles, is it sustainable? Blah blah blah. He's a backup. Well, Case Keenum was a backup. Is that sustainable? Yep. I'm like, well, I had a larger body of work to think that Case Keenum was going to get things done. He was installed as the starter as week 2 as opposed to like week 15 or week 16 with Foles, and then Foles didn't look so great, so hot at the end of the regular season. So I don't know. I was very surprised, but I mean, the Philadelphia defense just laid the smackdown on the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, my brother, as I've said, is the brother that wasn't dropped on his head, is an Eagles fan. And even he was surprised. Now, he expected them to lose this game. But he held out hope that they would win. I'm not surprised by how well their defense played. I am surprised by how poorly the Minnesota defense played. Nick Foles is a streaky kind of quarterback. He's a rhythm quarterback. He has had success and he has had less than success, but he's in a system at Philly that is comfortable for him. And they have adjusted their offense to play to what Nick Foles can do. A lot of read options, a lot of run pass options. And, Foles is getting the ball out really quick and he's making smart decisions. And it did not look like the Minnesota defense was remotely prepared for Nick Foles and what that Philly offense was going to end up doing to them. Look, it benefits when you get a really nice pick 6 return. Chris Long was playing out of his mind in that game, getting a lot of pressure on Keenum, caused that one interception that was returned for a touchdown, and they turned the ball over a second time, I think, maybe even a third time. I can't remember now. And, all of which led to points. You're not going to come back from that regardless. And, in the battle of the backups, as we say, you cannot turn the ball over.
Yeah, I mean, Case Keenum turned into a pumpkin, and my question was whether or not Foles could keep this going. And, Zach made some good points, too, and it's the same thing I said about Jimmy G with San Fran. I like to see it over 16 games. Well, did anyone think Keenum was going to win 13 games? No, I don't even think I had the Vikings as a playoff team, to be completely honest.
Right.
Everybody was like, Sam Bradford played that incredible game with whatever 85% completion percentage or whatever craziness he did week 1, and then disappeared disappeared. And, that was kind of the point where there were some people criticizing Mike Zimmer, head coach of the Vikings, and saying, hey, why didn't you yank Case Keenum, pull a Nick Saban like the national championship game at halftime and put the other quarterback in? I mean, they were, what, in some type of 31-7 hole or something, maybe at halftime or just shortly thereafter. I mean, it didn't turn out very well for the Vikings. So they don't get to play at home, and it's going to be the Eagles. And I hope the Eagles can bring the same type of game, because I don't know that they know they're up against two teams in the Super Bowl. So, yep. Oh, man, I really, you know what, I hate to say I told you so, but I said when ahead of this Jaguars-Patriots game, I'm not sure if they let them play the same way that there would be the same type of outcome, and it nearly went Jacksonville's way, but instead it went the Patriots' way as they get penalized one time on special teams, no less, on a kick or a punt return. I think it was a punt return for 10 yards, and nothing else the rest of the game, and some really egregious type some calls that we're going to discuss here. But 24-20, and it just inflates the whole Brady Belichick mystique even further. It angers and infuriates me to no end to see this game turn out the way that it did. But for a while there, I mean, the Jaguars, they went to town on the Patriots, and I mean, if it wasn't for a call here or there, it probably would have come out, even with Blake Bortles as the quarterback, they may have come out the victor.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this because I know we both have a ref burr up our behinds today. But Jacksonville is floating quite right along, getting ready to drive down, increase their lead, and something happened that I know you've said this, and I said it when it happened. That would never happen in any stadium anywhere in the league except New England under these circumstances. And it threw the Jags off. There's no question about it. They didn't, they had to change what they were doing. They had to get rid of the ball, and it's a momentum crusher, and they needed to be able to ride that momentum as long as they could and build up as big of a lead as they could. And I really think there is a key turning point in that game that was not the result of the players.
Delay of game?
Yeah.
I have a lot of people that are, and I'm getting the other side of it, the catch-22, and I understand it. But hear me out on this one, okay? When you have a delay of game call, whistles blown, referees are waving their arms, usually more than one, flags thrown, dead ball, you don't continue playing. The Jaguars and the Patriots, not one, not two, not three guys, not one team. All 22 players play this entire down, of which Jacksonville would have gotten or should have gotten a first down. Off of a great pass, by the way. I think it was the rookie Cole who caught the ball too. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden there's now you're hearing whistles, and you're not sure what the whistles are for, and there's a flag, and you're thinking to yourself, holding or whatever be the case, right? Because there could be holding on any play. Well, apparently not in this game, or not in the entire postseason. Delay of game. The referees. Okay, the guy in charge of making this call is right by Blake Bortles. Why was he tone deaf or something? Was it so loud in the stadium? Was it so loud that the referees who have earpieces, all of them, and I've used this equipment before, by the way, it is a live microphone. It does not turn on or off. You could speak into it. Oftentimes, they probably have to huddle up because of the noise, because, it could bother you. But these are, the whistle itself is usually a peelless whistle that is windproof. It is so loud that if you use it indoors, you can bust someone's eardrum with it. They often sell them as safety devices, too. I.e. rape whistle. That's probably the best example I've got for anybody. But they do sell them as that. It's called a Fox 40 whistle. They make various variations of them that have different tones. There's no way that any of the other 6-7 referees on the field and 22 other players and then coaches, aren't the coaches going to be yelling and saying, hey, that's a dead ball, why are you letting him play, blah, 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 blah. It blew my mind. It blew my mind that happened the way it happened. That killed the momentum, and then you have, right after that, the Barry Church hit on Gronk, which we both agreed. We see why it was called because of the helmet, but I don't think it was dirty. Gronk was led into that and dove for where Brady put the ball. Church already had him squared up, but there's nothing about intent or being deliberate in the rules. It's that's a black and white. But the delay of game thing, to me, is how many times do you see Ben or anybody, Brady, any of these guys snap the football? It's practically at zero. It's like one of those things that if it's close, let it go. This was like, fractions of a second that it's like the guy was second guessing it and decided to throw the flag after the fact, thinking that it was zero on the play call.
Yeah, Tony Romo even said that exact thing, fractions of a second. And you know what really galls me? Almost every time there's a delay of game, they'll do a replay. And in that replay, they'll show the clock counting down to give you the clear notification that, yes, in fact, they didn't get the ball away. Well, they didn't do that right away here. They did not bother to show that at all. And that in and of itself raises suspicions. The fact that nobody thought it was a delay of game, that, yes, it's close, but it's exactly what you said. How many times have we actually seen play clocks go down to 0-0 and the ball is not snapped, but is snapped a half of an instant later, and it's always let go? Almost universally it's let go. Unless the delay is egregious and you have a full second go by, you almost never call that. So to have that called at the key point for them at this point, if Jacksonville goes down and scores again, it's 21-3. And that's a huge deal.
You know what? It's not like the defensive players aren't watching this too. They know if it goes down to zero, because you know what? If you take it all the way to zero, there's no guesswork in hiking the ball. It's not like you're going to draw someone offside. That's what always drove me crazy about some of the play calls with the Steelers and the execution over several years. I'm always screaming, get the playoff, you know what I mean? So so you have the Gronk hit, and then, of course, you get the pass interference. They march all the way down the field, and they score, which is just ridiculous. Now, the pass interference, Cooks is hand-fighting, I think, with Ramsey on this one. Ramsey or Boyd, it didn't matter. Those guys are interchangeable. They were the best cornerback duo in the NFL this year. And Cooks is just about out of bounds, and the ball sails like 10 yards overhead. It was worse than the Artie Burns call with Mike Wallace when the Steelers and Ravens played, and I was out of my mind with that one, too. I just could not believe that you knew it was coming. I mean, you pretty much knew that the Buffalo Wild Wings button was getting hit, and they weren't going to let the Patriots be out of this game for so much. But all that aside, let's just say, let's throw that out the window. Let's throw some of the holding on the one Dion Lewis sweep, which was obvious. Guy gets spun around. The worst was Miles Jack recovering the fumble, and they blow the ball dead when he has a clear pathway to run it for a touchdown. That would have put the game out of reach for the Patriots, no matter how much time, no matter what else would have happened. I said one turnover, that's all Jacksonville needs, and then they were about to score off of it as well, as they've done all season long, and they blow the whistle on it. And the worst part is he blew the whistle, and they actually called it a fumble on the field. If they would have called it runner down by contact, and then Doug Marrone, the coach for the Jaguars, would have had to throw a challenge flag on it, okay, understood. But no, this was a complete cluster all the way around.
Yeah, how many times has the excuse been made, oh, we'll let them play and then we'll fix it and replay? In this case, they didn't let them play. They didn't let the natural course of the play take place. And the natural course of that play, had it been allowed to play out, had the whistle not been too fast, they would have, Jacksonville would have scored again. And you're right. That is very likely going to put the game out of reach. Look, we've been saying this all year long, since the first game of the season. The refs stink.
Well,
they just stink.
I just think it's like we've been conditioned with like the delay of game, with we don't know what a catch is. Now we don't know what pass interference or what holding are either. It's a whole different set of rules that are, or a whole different way of interpreting it for the postseason. I think it's ridiculous. But on that note, with the Miles Jack thing and letting him play, isn't that exactly what happened in the Kansas City Tennessee Titans game when Derrick Henry fumbled and it looked like he was clearly down and they just let it go? It just blows my mind. I just can't. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And that definitely hurt. Definitely hurt Jacksonville. It hurt their momentum. It hurt their chance of their edge pretty much. So this is from Neil Coulong, by the way. I got a tweet here. He's Neil, a friend of Steel City Underground, works with the USA Today team of wire sites like Steelers Wire and whatnot. He says to do the math on the penalties, the last 5 Patriots games, you have the Patriots 2 for 4 yards, two flags for 10 yards, 4 for 49, 4 for 37, 1 for 10. Their opponents, 6 for 63, 4 for 83, 9 for 84, 10 for 62, and 6 for 98. So the Patriots penalized 9 times in 5 games. Steelers have been penalized more than 9 times in 5 games for 110 yards in just one game. In one game, let alone 5 games. Their opponents, 29 penalties for 390 yards. The law of averages just does not. There's no way you could BS me and tell me that the Patriots are just that much more disciplined than their opponents. There's clearly the perception of favoritism, whether it's true or not, is there and justified.
Yeah, when I was, I think it was after the Jesse James catch, and Jesse James caught that ball.
Yes, he did.
After that game, I wrote a piece about perception and the refs, and it wasn't really directed at the refs being bad or making mistakes. It was really directed at what is a perceived unfairness. When calls always seem to benefit one team. That's when the conspiracy theorists come out and claim that the game is fixed, it's rigged. I have seen more people claiming that it's fixed, claiming that it's rigged this season than ever before, and it is in large part due to how these things are perceived. You cannot have this kind of imbalance in refereeing for one team and expect people not to assume bias. And part of that is the refs. And, it's a bad look. The ref in New England who goes up and congratulates Tom Brady, pats him on the chest and says, "Hey, good job there, buddy. You can meet me in the," as I think one of us tweeted out, "You can meet me in the locker room for my check later."
Those guys, they gather as a group and run off the field together with security. Like, who stops and shakes hands like a politician wanting to kiss babies? I've never seen that before. It's insane.
Not once. Never have I seen that ever in any game. And you're talking about games that you've watched where the, people like Joe Montana's last game or Steve Young's last game or, Jerry Rice's last game. The refs aren't going up and congratulating them, and saying good job. It's wrong. It just doesn't look good. It adds to that perception. And true or false, regardless of whether it's real or just the addled minds of those of us who sometimes subscribe to these things, that becomes a more demonstrative narrative across everybody because there is basis for it. And that is a problem that the NFL has to address. And look, as much as I say the refs stink because they stink, I will give them this. Part of the problem is I think they are not being held accountable to a level of consistency, and they need to be, because what is holding in one game needs to be holding in every game. It cannot be perceived judgment on certain things, and it has to be cleared up. You can't have this vagary because it's gonna fuel this. And, people are going to tune out, and it will not be because of anthem protests or cleats that are being worn inappropriately or any of the other celebrations or any of that kind of nonsense. It'll be because people don't trust the outcome of the games.
Yeah, or they're just, they're sick of being jerked around. And what, this could come from the top too. They're, whether it be Senior VP of Officiating Al Riveron giving internal memos and directives on what to do during the postseason versus what happened in the regular season, or bosses above him, and there are many of them. There's 32 owners, and there's a commissioner that oversees all this stuff. You don't know what goes on behind closed doors and what these guys are being told, and maybe that is some reason to the inconsistency too. But I know we're up against it, Brian, but one last comment was all of the people harping about James Harrison, and even Tony Romo, shame on the commentary team for guess who's in on this play, James Harrison. You mean like a second or two or three or four late to the play? Yeah. I pulled up the stat sheet because I had people just buying into this, like just this bogus myth that he had this great impact on the game. For all the people that are out there, and we've got some stuff coming when it comes to the whole Bud Dupree thing and being in the system. We've got more topics to talk about this offseason, so Bud's for another day. But there's people out there throwing around the B word as in bust and even comparing him to Jarvis Jones, of which I don't take favor with, not lightly at all, because Jarvis Jones just wasn't good. But with Dupree and even like Shazier overrunning the play and blah, 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 that's all the more Harrison did there too. Folks, look at the stat sheet. He didn't get a sack. He was not credited with it by the official stats guys. When they had the Jaguars backed up to their own end zone and Bortles moves up in the pocket, he's sacked by another guy, number 98, wrapped and taken to the ground before Harrison even gets there, even gets the lay. He gets in on the pile after the fact. He is not even an assisted, not even a half sack, and he isn't the one who stripped the ball at the end for the strip sack either. He was also late. He overruns it. Bortles, like any other quarterback, moves up in the pocket, and if there wasn't another guy there, he probably gets a clean pass off instead of being hit and fumbling and whatnot. Harrison, 3 tackles, 3 solo tackles, none assisted, no passes deflected, no forced fumbles, no fumble recoveries, no sacks. Sorry, this is why the Steelers just said c'est la vie.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. It's just, it was amazing to me watching it how many times they tried to push the narrative of James Harrison making a difference. I get it. It's an interesting storyline that a guy 39 years old is still playing outside linebacker in the NFL. That just doesn't happen. But you can't make things happen that aren't happening. If you didn't ever look at the stat sheet and just walked away having listened to the announcers on that game, you'd have assumed James Harrison had 3 sacks, a strip sack, a fumble, and was the primary reason that the Jaguars failed. Yeah, he's the MVP of the game. He wasn't. He had none of those things at the end of the day. As you said. So I get it. I understand the search for trying to find a way to bring another storyline other than the Brady Belichick love fest that will go on, hopefully, and will end in 2 weeks because I can't bear to listen to it all off season again. Yeah, but you can't make a narrative where there is none. James Harrison can rush the passer. He can produce pressure. Yes. But he is not a difference maker anymore. And it's just that simple.
Yeah, hopefully we don't eat those words. But, yeah, the things he did with the Jets, with Bryce Petty in a meaningless game at the end of the year in garbage time, that's not counting. He's playing less than half of the snaps, et cetera. So, I mean, the people that are happy that he's with New England now and he could maybe win another Super Bowl ring, great, be happy for him. Just don't look his comments of participation trophy, don't take those with a whole lot of weight right now. Take that with a grain of salt, considering the way things went down and what team he ended up going to, knowing he would have a shot at that. It's great that he wants to play or whatever. That's his prerogative. He doesn't want to waste time sitting on the bench, but the way this all went down, that's the real storyline. Nothing has really changed. So we do have some questions from some of you listeners. Thank you for leaving the comments on the various many platforms where this show runs and airs. We'll get to those because you know what? We're not going to be talking about the Pro Bowl later this week. Hardly any. But congrats to Rosie Nix and Cam Hayward for being some alternates that were selected in addition to all the other Steelers who are there. 10 Steelers in total. One of those, Ryan Shazier, who's not playing. So there's 9 guys there. Coach Tomlin and company also coaching. We'll see if Todd Haley's on the sidelines. So until next time, folks, my name's Joe. His name's Brian. Be safe. Be good. We'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.